Welcome folks, I'm Sam Faddis and this is Ground Truth, where we try to get past the hype and the spin and the nonsense that passes for news and talk about reality. Today we're talking about Twitter and Turkey and what it all means. The President of the United States recently blasted Turkey in Twitter, saying that if the Turks intervened in Syria and took action against American Kurdish allies there as our troops withdraw, that we would wage what amounts to economic warfare against Turkey and destroy its economy. Even for this president, that's a pretty dramatic thing to do on Twitter, threatening a NATO ally with economic destruction. So what's going on? Well, the United States and Turkey have been very close allies, going back to at least the Cold War, when we all linked arms against the Soviet Union in a common threat. With the end of the Cold War, of course, as that threat diminished, other issues came to the fore, amongst them the whole Turkish-Kurdish question. The Turks and the Kurds are distinct ethnic groups. They have an age-old hostility, a blood feud. The Turks have very large numbers of Kurds living within their borders, and there are also very large Kurdish populations in Iran, Iraq, and Syria. And the Turks live in fear of all of these Kurds uniting, of eastern Turkey breaking away, and waking up one day to find themselves face to face with a hostile Kurdistan on their borders. Hence the Turkish interest in moving into Syria as we move out and making sure that the Syrian Kurds don't get uppity and start having ideas about forming their own nation. But as significant as the Turkish-Kurdish question is, there are other, perhaps even more fundamental things afoot here. In the aftermath of the First World War, as the Ottoman Empire dissolved, modern-day Turkey emerged under Kemal Ataturk. And it took a decidedly Western, very, very secular direction. So all Turks were required to get Western-style names. Women were banned from wearing headscarves in schools and in government offices. The Latin alphabet was adopted and Arabic script abandoned. And Turkey, for decades thereafter, probably 70 years, followed that very secular, very Western path. Now, under Recep Erdogan, his Islamic party, Turkey is on a very different path, one very much in an Islamic direction that places it increasingly in conflict with the United States, increasingly in conflict with American allies like the Saudis and like the Israelis. And on this path, it appears that Turkey is ever closer to American enemies like Iran. For at least 20 years now, we've tried to paper over this shift and pretend as if nothing has really changed and hope that we could preserve our relationship with Turkey. What the president's tweets signify is that the cracks in the foundation of this relationship are now far too large for us to ignore them anymore. Something very, very fundamental is happening, and there is no going back. How fast this is going to happen, exactly how far it's going to go, remains unclear. The Turks will likely remain within NATO for some time, but it is increasingly likely that American bases in Turkey, amongst them principally Incirlik in the southeast, a U.S. Air Force base, will probably close in the foreseeable future as we find ourselves increasingly less and less allied with the Turks and more confrontational with them. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Ground Truth.